This one thing made me into a better photographer, and maybe it can help you too. A few months ago, I moved into the new place where I am now, and part of my move, I was looking for somewhere that I could have a home studio in. I have my office here where I shoot these videos, where I edit these videos, where I edit all my photos, and where I sometimes play the drums. But I don't shoot everything here. I have a full dedicated studio setup right in my living room. Now, yes, it might not be necessarily ideal, but anybody who knows me knows this is just kind of how I work. I'm going to have a space that I can create in at a moment's notice. If I'm doing headshots, model test shoots, creative shoots, personal work, the list goes on, I have somewhere that I can shoot them without renting an additional space. Plus, being a model, doing a bit of acting here and there, I have somewhere that I can record self-tapes from with all the lighting, all the everything at a moment's notice. Plus, I still have my dedicated living room that either people can chill out between shots or you can just, well, live. And when it's not in use, I can tuck the stands and everything off to the side and it doesn't get in the way too much. Now, this might not be the ideal flow for some, but I am an artist in his 20s who wants to be creating all the time. And this was something that was important to me in finding a new space, somewhere that I could prioritize making stuff. That's what it's allowed me to do, is when I'm not out shooting here, there, and everywhere, I can have a space from home that I can shoot from anytime. And I would say anywhere, but it's one place, so one where, I suppose. It makes it easier. And it kind of adds to this whole, like, you know, personification of an artist or whatever. And I wasn't in a position yet to have my own dedicated studio space that I would be, you know, renting out for however long. And then that's an additional lease that I would have. It made more sense for me, especially in the city that I live in, to have a larger apartment that I could shoot in as well. I know many photographers have done this. There are photographers in New York that have done this because sometimes it just makes more sense to have a space in your apartment that you can shoot from. And yes, it might not be ideal for some. And yes, it might throw off the, like, you know, the whole interior design layout, and it might throw off the Pinterest board you had in your head, but at the end of the day, it lets you create more. It lets you shoot more, especially if you're like me and live in somewhere where it gets really cold in the winter. You don't always want to be shooting outside. So it has a welcoming place that I can bring people in and just create. I can, you know, there's enough space for makeup and hair and stylists to do their work. There's enough space for me to work and to tether into a laptop if I want to have multiple light setups, to change the backdrops up, to change all of it up. It's allowed me, you know, to have a space that's not like some dark, dingy basement or anything. It's created a space that it feels like it's almost like I'm in like a live work studio situation, but it works really well and it's allowed me to shoot a lot more, making me ultimately a better photographer because it's allowed me to be able to collaborate more with different people. It's allowed me to take on more work because I have a dedicated studio space, and it's allowed me to, I can raise my rates a little bit for the clients coming here, but I'm not raising them any more than if I were renting a studio anyway. Sometimes it actually works out cheaper. And for me, I don't have to rent a space anytime I want to do a test shoot. My previous apartment before was quite a bit smaller. At any time I wanted to do a test shoot, a creative shoot, anything, I was funding a lot of it by renting studios for all of it. Even if I wanted to, I teach classes on Skillshare, and sometimes I will rent studios for those. Now I don't have to. It keeps, weirdly, by increasing my overhead, it keeps it also lower at the same time, which is a huge benefit, because even a studio renting it for one day can be $500, $600, $700. It's not cheap, and that adds up quick because that's just one day. So you multiply that even twice in a month, do 2 shoots in a month, and suddenly you're like at $1,400. Whereas with this, sure, you're paying a little more rent for a little more space than maybe you would otherwise need, but you can shoot as much as you want in there. You can do 10 shoots in a month, and the cost is significantly less, especially if they're creative shoots, especially if they're for your portfolio, things that you want to build onto your work to try and get more work of that type. You have a space that allows you to do that. And that's changed the game for me. It's made me a better photographer. It's made me a happier photographer. It makes it so I shoot more, and I shoot more of what I want to be shooting. And I can, it ends up where, I can take on more work, so it ends up that I can make more money in the process. This is nothing against having your own dedicated studio space that's separate from your home. That's a goal, absolutely. That's something that down the line, yes, 100%. And that's okay that I'm not there yet, but this has been a huge stepping stone for me personally. It's something that I dreamt about before at my own place. You're like, oh, if I just had somewhere that I could live in and create from. And now we're here. And that's super, super exciting. There's been a lot of shoots that I've already done in here. I've got a lot more planned. I'm excited to do a lot more with this space, to create more, to have more people involved, to really build up that community and just have, a lot of warmth in your space is something I've always loved. And this, it creates creative challenges because you don't have necessarily a ton of room to work with, because it is it's like a smaller studio space, basically. Like I've shot in some studio spaces that are roughly, once you figure it all out, about this size with the amount that you can shoot in, right? So it creates challenges of shooting in small spaces, which not everyone knows how to do. And that's something that was a learning curve that I had, that I learned even while I was studying photography, when the studios may not be as big as you want them to be or whatever, but you got to make it work. So you do. It's a creative challenge, but sometimes these constrictions help you grow as well. Maybe if you're sitting here wishing, wow, I wish I had a space to shoot in, that I lived in, that there was enough space to have a dedicated full-time studio just set up all the time, ready to go. I used to really long for that, and now I have it. So if it's possible for me, it's possible for you. And then down the line, maybe I'll be making a video someday about a bigger studio. And I'll be looking back. That'll be a different video. Until then, thank you for watching. Consider subscribing if you haven't already. Join along this journey with me. Remember, as always, to work hard, rest often. And as always, I'll see you on the next one.